Let's get started with the open meeting. I'd like to welcome DMS head Ms. Rebecca Lam for the first time. Welcome, Madam Lam. I'd like to record our vote of thanks to Ms. Lau Chi Wai, who has been posted out. Please send our thanks to Madam Lau. Other than Madam Rebecca Lam, we have ACP Mr. Kwok, and also Mr. Sam Law, SSP, CAPO, and Mr. Chen Wai-ming, SSP, SDCA, CAPO, and Mr. Chen Jing-dong. We have the pleasure to have invited Ms. Ingrid Mack, Senior Clinical Psychologist, CPSS-PSG, to talk to us about a new topic. We have all the members here except 3 who are otherwise engaged today, and they're Mr. Lam, Ms. Song, and Ms. Wall. The minutes of the last meeting have been circulated to members, and we have highlighted all the proposed amendments. Do I hear any proposed amendments here and now? If not, shall we take the minutes as read? The second item on the agenda is the presentation by the police. I'd like to invite Senior Clinical Psychologist to brief us. Chairman, members, over the past year, in dealing with the anti-extradition protests, the frontline officers have been under tremendous pressure, and they have to work long hours, and their lives are at risk when they're in operation. Some had the neck slashed, some had corrosive acid splashed on them, some had their legs pierced by an arrow, and some was attacked with a knife during off-duty, and some were pelted with Molotov cocktails in the police quarters, and they were vandalized, and they were doxing in the media, and their family members are also affected. The psychologists in the police have been providing all-round support to the police officers. The most important thing is a resilience-building training to make sure that officers can adjust themselves and keep the best mental condition to measure up to the challenges. So we have invited Ms. Ingrid Mack, Senior Police Clinical Psychologist, to give us a briefing. Ingrid, please. Welcome. Chairman, members, I am a Senior Police Clinical Psychologist, Ingrid Mack. There are 11 clinical psychologists in our division responsible for psychological counseling and also to offer training to the officers. I'm glad that I'm here again after 1 year to brief members on the resilience building training workshop for the police officers. There are 3 parts to the briefing. The first one is a bit of background in preparation for the workshop. The second part is devoted to the resilience building workshop, all the details and so on. And then we'll be briefing members all the way forward. First off, after a whole year of anti-extradition protests and social unrest, this has been besetting Hong Kong for a year, and the officers are bearing the brunt. Over the past year, they've been faced a lot of violent confrontations, and their safety is a risk. And in the community, there is very much anti-police sentiments and officers are doxxed and harassed. Their personal life, as well as their family members' lives, are affected. Over the past year, for some time, their quarters were under attack. Their family members, their kids, were subject to certain harassment. Faced with these pressures, the colleagues might have relationship problems with their family members and their circles of friends because of misunderstanding. Our division has devoted a lot of resources to step up the psychological services for the frontline officers. We would send a team to the front line to understand the morale for critical situations like shooting and serious injuries. We would be there on the scene to offer psychological support on the scene. Over the past year, we have seen an increase in the number of counseling cases. In 2019, counseling cases compared with 2018, and we have seen an increase of 28%. You can imagine the tremendous pressure facing the colleagues. In order to step up our service, we use mobile phones to text short messages to give them certain tips, and we have 2 24-hour helplines to help the officers. The colleagues, family members are also affected. So in the past year, we have extended our counseling services to family members of police officers. Other than counseling, we also organize a whole raft of workshops for the family members and spouses, for them to alleviate the burden. In December last year, violent protests have receded a little bit in society. During that period, we have plans to organize some resilience building programs for the officers, for them to adjust their emotion so that when they return to the frontline policing work, they will be able to adapt themselves to the situation. And in the past year, from our contact with frontline officers, we gathered some observations, and from December last year to February this year, we have conducted an online survey to collect views from the police officers and also the pressure that they are under. We've also consulted the operational commanders to gauge their views. So we find from our consultation that colleagues are very concerned about the policing work and whether there will be any new mode of policing. They're also concerned how they can deal with relationship splits in their interaction with their friends. They are concerned how they can rebuild trust between the police officers and the friends, and also the members of the public. And we are also concerned about the sentiments in the community and how they will have a bearing on the policing work. So in this workshop, there are 2 aims they would like to achieve. First of all, we will try to address officers' psychological needs arising from social movement, and they have faced tremendous pressure, and there are negative sentiments in the community, and this may be an opportunity for them to sort out their emotions and their feelings so that they will have the motivation to soldier on and face the challenges ahead. And we are preparing them for new policing challenges that lie in front of them. Between May and July this year, we've started the resilience workshops. Over the past 2 to 3 months, we have run so far 20 workshops 2,900 frontline officers, in particular those who were involved in riot work, taking part in the workshops. Second, you may be interested to know about the content of the workshops and what they are all about and so on. It is a 4-day workshop. There is the AM session and the PM session. In the morning we have the emotion part. We help colleagues to understand themselves and understand the other parties. So the first part is devoted to emotion. When colleagues finish work, they will unload their gear, the equipment, and get preparation for the next day's work. They probably don't have the opportunity to unload their emotional burden. So in this workshop, we have arranged for a comfortable environment for the officers to offload the complicated emotions they've been building up over the past year, and for them to sort out their memories. We also have interactive sharings to let them know that they're not alone. Many people are sharing their emotions as well. In the 10 workshops, we have, or 20 workshops, we have heard a lot of stories, tearful stories, and some of them, some of the contradictions are stemming from misunderstanding, and some have really neglected their family members, and the spouses have had bear the sole burden. And many officers are liable to be attacked by the hooligans, and they have to remain vigilant all the time. There is not an opportunity for them to relax.
So many complain of suffering from insomnia, and then the difficulty of going to sleep. And then many express their worries and difficulties. Many times that while the police officers have to arrest some of the rioters, and and they finally notice that once they take off their mask, they know that what they have arrested are kids, like their children, and then they don't really understand and are very worried about these youngsters, and then also are very worried about the future. And most of the sessions last for about 2 hours, and then we have interactive activities during the sessions. Other than that, we have another game. It is called the Dixit card game. We will allow them to choose an abstract card, and we want them to choose one that will give them hope and support and share their feelings about the future and then their aspirations in the days to come. And most of the staff share some commonalities. They really want that Hong Kong could come out of this political turmoil, and then return to the harmonious and peace time that we used to enjoy. And in these sessions, the psychologists and psychiatrists also take the opportunity to work on some psychological mental education. And we will make use of these workshops to talk about the traumatic stress. And we encourage them that we can have a different stress after all this traumatic experience, and depending on our individual and unique situation, we need actually to really relax, and we need to take care of our own just psychological and also physical well-being. And we also need to attach importance to interpersonal relationship, and that leads to this another part of our workshop, that is interpersonal relationship. In this period of time, many people were divided according to the political affiliation, the yellow and blue, and then they would point fingers to each other. So our psychiatrists would use different methods to allow the participants to understand the social split through the different social psychology lenses. We are all affected by our social environment. We are all limited by our perceptions. So that, even under the same situation, we have different perspective and also feelings. And then we want to enhance the awareness of our participants to have more empathy towards our family and other people, so that we can you can build a more harmonious relationship with the others. We also talk about in-groups and out-groups biases. These are cognitive biases, and this will also enlarge the split between different parts of the society. Whoever we are, including the police, we cannot just get away with our biases. We hope that through all these theories, we can alert our police colleagues so that we will not go deeper into this kind of biases and perspective, and then not actually to divide people just because of their political affiliation, become blue and then yellow. And then in this session, we also encourage our colleagues to have more communications with our friends and families and neighbors, and then to have more sympathy and understanding of the others. And then, many times our commonalities are more than our differences. So through these social psychology sessions, we hope that our colleague could take a first step to mend the relationship. And then for this morning session of knowing ourselves, we have the meaning part. And with this session, we know that all the police officers are experiencing the stress from all sides, and then we need to rebuild their confidence and also rebuild the belief for being a policeman. And in this session, we have this Ikika session. Ikika is the Japanese word meaning the meaning of living. And this is about the value and the reasons for staying alive. And through this opportunity, we explore with our colleagues to understand better the value and our belief. Well, in the first place, as joining the police force, we have made 10 postcards. You can see all these postcards on the screen. We invite all the participants to choose one of their favorite, and then they can fill in the blanks at the back, and then and afterwards they will send this back to themselves. And through this exercise, we want them to actually go back to the beginning to know why they want to join the police, what they like best, and then and also what they think the world needs from them. We also invite them to write down just a few words or a sentence, and that is a kind of feedback for what they have done in the past years. And that after doing this exercise, someone will find that maybe that simple gestures from the public will be something very important for their work, and then give them back the confidence and then their belief, etc. And then, most of the police, after this exercise, know that most of the people in the public are good people, and as long as there is someone, even though there's one who needs our work, and then we need actually to perform. And then, we hope that, after 6 months, when they receive this postcard and they reviewed what they have written, 6 months back, and this will serve as reminders for them to continue and to be a police and have confidence to do so. This is what we did in the morning. It's about knowing oneself. And in the afternoon is the second part of our workshop is knowing the others. And we hope that through the exercise that our colleagues will understand the social unrest and the psychology of the protesters. Because in the morning, through the social psychology, we help our colleagues to understand the relationship split and then other reasons behind that. But still with that, there might remain a lot of questions like so why people still want to resort to violence, like setting fire to shops, and also to attack other people. And then why, even doing this kind of violent act, that they still got support and also participations from other parts of the society. So in this afternoon session, we hope to try to help our colleagues to understand the situation. And in this afternoon session, there's the experience sharing. And we have invited colleagues from PPRB, from CSTCB, PNC, and OCTB, and they share their experience and in their own sector. And we hope that through all this sharing, that while our colleagues will understand better the challenges when they are performing the duty. And through this sharing of different colleagues in the special task, we hope that the frontline policemen could understand the protesters also have their need. And they need to be listened. They need to be respected. They need people to hear their belief. And also in the society, there are some violent protesters, and they have their own narratives. And they tried to legitimize their own action and also their belief. And through our colleagues in different departments, we wanted to help people to understand the network of power, the power of networks, and then how they affect the organizing and mobilization of the movement, like the spreading of fake news and how to instigate hate, etc. So that through this sharing section, that we hope our colleagues will understand better the violence and also the development of the movement. We hope that they also understand that we have challenges from protesters and also the society. And then the violence has been legitimized, and then they have got empathy from the public, particularly the young people who also participate in the movement. We want to tell our colleagues that they are facing challenges that focus on the flaws of the police. And then there are also challenges on the use of force. We hope that through all these sharings, that our colleagues will be aware of the protesters' psychology and the behavior, so that they know how to respond to these challenges. As psychologists, we also help the colleagues to know their own limitations and constraints, because whoever we are, that we have different thresholds, we have different limitations. So they need to observe whether that they are too tired or that they are being triggered by some of the words the protesters use. So once you understand your own limitation, then they might be able to make the right choice. The right choice means that sometimes they might, to get out of the situation, we always emphasize that they need actually to take care of each other. If you see that your colleagues are facing a tremendous stress, that you might advise them to take a step backward. We also advise our colleagues to prepare some dialogue to the response, to some of the verbal judo, and then this will actually resolve some of the conflicts that might take place. And sometimes some surprise action will dissolve the tension. And then this picture, we also saw that in the workshop. This was taken on the 1st of December last year, while outside the cultural center when there is a demonstration. And this gesture is response by a policeman to a kid just opposite the street. And then this become viral on the web, and there actually is a lot of positive response. And this colleagues of ours also share his feeling with us. He says that he doesn't want to become too actually confrontational, and the tension heightens whenever we were working. Taking our duty. Every action, every decision of ours could rewrite the story and the narrative. So in this one-day workshop, and then this is also one of the few focuses. And we hope that with the afternoon session, our colleagues will understand the psychology of the protesters, and then also their own limitation and their choice. Well, overall, the feedbacks are quite positive. These are some of the feedbacks from our colleagues. Well, in the morning session, many colleagues think that they can learn from the psychologies, very effective methods to mend the split between the people. And some share that they can relieve some of the negative emotions within, and then they enjoy some space and also have the motivation to start again. And some says that they can open the heart and then actually share some of the emotion since they joined the Tide Riders operation. The afternoon session are also quite popular among our colleagues. And they said, some said that they understand the meaning of the Tide Rider operation, and they also understand better that they are actually protecting Hong Kong. And now with this session, they realized that they need to understand the need of the public, and then that there are opportunities that they can actually write the script all together.
Because of the pandemic, we stopped the workshop in August. With the easing of the pandemic, we hope that we will resume our workshop and pick up where we left off. We hope that all colleagues will be given opportunity to take part, and we will incorporate the details into future workshops. We find that many colleagues express the interest to mend the relationship with the people around them. So going forward, we will do more in the way of workshop. Over the past year, the whole of Hong Kong was under tremendous pressure, and people are suffering from some kind of trauma. So to tackle this, we will do more to ameliorate the situation. We have 11 in our division, and we are running workshops for 2,000–3,000 people. And we have a lot of people to thank: the Police Care Links, Cadet, Enoch Fellowship, internship students, and we have university undergraduates who are coming along to join us and giving us a helping hand. And this is a very good opportunity for the young people to get in touch with the frontline officers, so that they know that police officers are just one of them, and they have flesh and blood, and the undergraduates would understand the situation that they find themselves in. We're really grateful to these volunteers. We also have retirees who are coming along in their capacity as volunteers. In fact, the police still enjoy a lot of support in the community, and I'd like to take this opportunity to express our grateful thanks to all of them. Thank you all very much. So much for the briefing. Questions? Yes, please. Chairman, thank you. I'm grateful to the police for organizing this comprehensive resilience program. I've got two questions. Now, for the police officers and the family members, how serious a problem are they suffering emotionally because of the protest movements? Is it the case that there are more police officers and the family members who need emotional and psychological support? Or is it the case that there are not that many? Second, this program is a one-day workshop, and you may have a whole series of lectures. I'm wondering whether there is enough element of interaction for these programs to be effective. I think you need to engage the participants so that there may be some group activities for the messages to sink in. So in terms of evaluation, in terms of sustainability, that is only one day, and is it necessary for you to offer them some booster programs afterwards? Thank you. Thanks very much for your question. Over the past year, the family members of the police officers are also under tremendous pressure. So we are not restricting this to police officers and the civilian staff. We have extended this to the family members. For the new counseling cases, maybe 1/6 of them are from the family members. The number is higher than in the past. We have extended this to the family members this time around, so it would take time for us to build up the statistics. As to follow up, I share your sentiments. One single workshop may not be quite sufficient. So after the workshop, we poll the participants, and some of them would like to find out how they can mend their relationship with their circle of friends, and some may be suffering from PTSD, and we would liaise with them and invite them back for further workshops, and we will maintain our communication with our colleagues. Thank you. Any further questions? Yes, please. Now, what about the mental condition of the frontline officers? You said you do have some mechanism whereby you send your team to the front line. I'm sure that these are psychologists, aren't they? Yes. So for major incidents, you will follow up on the police officers. We understand that the frontline officers are under a lot of pressure, and they may be subject to all kinds of attacks. Now my question is, if a major incident occurred, like a shooting, for example, the police officer who fired the shot must also be under pressure because he's wounded someone. So what sort of follow-up action would you take in that kind of scenario? Right, after shooting has occurred, the police do have the mechanism for them to have some kind of counseling. This is very much part of the mechanism. So for police officers who have fired a shot, they would receive counseling from the psychologists. They will also conduct psychological work. The psychological problems may not occur straight away. We would show them what sort of pressure they would face, like media pressure, the pressure arising from investigation if someone has been wounded. There would also be physical and mental pressure. So when we meet the colleagues, we would do a lot of psychological counseling. And we will maintain, keep up a counsel relationship with them. It's all on a case-by-case basis, but within the mechanism, we would take care of those officers who fired a shot. Sorry. Firing a shot is a major issue. Are there other issues that you would consider as a significant matter that warrant follow-up? If there's a major incident that occurred, I'm not sure how you define major incident. Are there any mechanisms whereby you would decide whether the police officer should continue engaging in policing work? In the police, we have the emergency situation psychological support, like something unexpected happened, like some officers got injured seriously, or in some cases we had a corrosive acid attack, and some of the colleagues who witnessed this will also face psychological pressure. We would get in touch with the field commander and make arrangement for small group sessions for those taking part to be involved. In these small group sessions, other than educating them how to deal with pressure, we would also conduct initial assessment to see whether some of them are under particular severe pressure. This mechanism has always been there in the police force. We do have this support mechanism all along. Your question about whether they should continue their policing work, it all depends on the situation. Whether they should be armed would very much depend on the emotional state and also the mental state, and all these will be taken into account. The commanders would also invite the psychologists to conduct some evaluation. From your record, say from last year till early part of March, from our report, there are 680 police officers who got injured. In your caseload of the 600 or so, how many of them do require counseling? We haven't got the breakdown from the 600 or so, but from last year, the counseling caseload, we do have the figures here. Over the past year, those seeking help, we had 270 cases, 206 are police officers. The rest are civilian staff and also family members. Over the past year, we have 206 new cases. Alex. Thank you, Chairman. And my thanks to Ingrid for the presentation. You all understand that the police officers and the family members are under a lot of pressure. I've got a couple of questions. First, you have 11 CPs or clinical psychologists in your team. You have to conduct analysis. You have to do the workshops, and you have to deal with the psychological problems of more than 10,000 officers. Do you think that you have enough staff complement? You are under a lot of pressure yourself, I'm sure. Do you think you have enough staff members? Second, I'm also concerned about the issue raised by Professor. There are some individual police officers and their family members who are facing more or greater and greater psychological problems to the extent of depression. Other than the counseling by the CP, would there be any other support, any psychiatrists who would come in and back you up and offer more assistance for the officers, and also to lighten your load, and also to deal with the psychological trauma that they're facing? But thanks very much for expressing your concerns about our level of manpower. We have 11 CPs, clinical psychologists in our team. We have increased the establishment. There should be 16 in the establishment, but we are still mounting recruitment to recruit more staff, and I hope that the new graduates would be interested in joining us and face challenges. We welcome them with open arms. So we are mounting recruitments to fill all the vacancies to build up the strength. You mentioned the psychiatric support. Over the past year, the hospital authority has been working in collaboration with us. The police CPs can refer colleagues to the HA for psychiatric treatment. They don't have to go through the GPs, and this is one of the support mechanisms. Also, in our society, in the Care for All program, the Psychiatric Association spearheaded this program. We have referred some of the colleagues to join the Care for All program to receive some psychiatric consultation in the private sector. That program is actually available to every single one in the community, and they would have some sessions, so all of us in Hong Kong would be able to join. And we have made some connection and make referral there for the officers and the family members to receive treatment there. Right, if I may follow up, that the emotional state is important for the police officers. The frontline deployment would also be important. The commanders must have some guidelines guiding them. If any of their colleagues are suffering from certain conditions, they would be alert in their deployment. Would there be such guidelines? And
or signal as such that you will further liaise with your management on this situation? Well, we have ever since a lot of different kinds of guidelines, like under what situation that we should change the different kinds of support and counseling, etc. Well, we have stated it very clearly in our menus. And so at the present, we have made some analysis as well, and then communicate with the commanders to keep alert of the situation of the frontline officers. Ingrid, I would like to ask, well, so far as we know that you and your unit are taking care of, post treatment or diagnosis, right? Is a post-event, right? No. In fact, that we have been doing both, like a promotion of mental health, etc. Well, what I mean is that, like an officer, well, in the recruit plan, or like in the training school, well, in the school, they have been trained to take command, from an ordinary person to one of the disciplinary forces. I think that, in fact, there is a lot of changes, in the process. So, what I would like to ask is that have you participated in the process of changing the ordinary citizens to a disciplinary team member? What I suggest is that will it be better? Well, all along we have participated in the cadet schools and in the basic training, whether they are like a CP or the superintendent. Then we have been taking care of the psychological situation or by the clinical psychiatrist. And once they graduate and before they pass out, and then we will also have some spiritual team members, and then to share with them the expectations, what they will face, like psychological stress, or once they are on duty in the streets, so that we will make use of different kinds of approaches, like management of stress and then the peer education, etc., to help them to build a sound foundation to face their work stress. Mary. Well, in fact, I just want to remind colleagues that, psychology and psychiatrists thinks that they are really, very simple task. Well, I just want to share a personal experience. I'm a lawyer, and then it's really midnight, 2 in the morning, and then we are taking testimony and from one of my client, and my client was actually giving testimony, and by our CID, and then suddenly the TIC jumped up, and then he asked me a question, and then after asking me, and then he asked my client. He in fact jumped out from that situation. I did not remember whether he carried a gun. It was so deep in the evening, and then I just immediately went out and then to talk to the supervisor, and then I just say that he might suffer from some mental problem. Well, I understood that the station sergeant says that don't worry about it. It is nothing serious. And then the taking of testimony continues, and then it becomes even more even worse. And then I of course returned to the station supervisor, and then he was removed from that situation. And then the note was presented to his supervisor, and then we found that they are quite nonsense, and then we have to release the client, and then. So what I would like to highlight is that, don't take it too lightly about mental health, because the officers carry guns. Well, you just need to take every single and little kind of incidents. Well, thank you for your reminder, and you remind us again that the prevention of mental health is very important, and then we need to aware, and then remind our colleagues to seek help once they feel or they find that they have problems with their mental situation. Well, thank you, Chair. I have a question. Just now you talked about the workshop. And this is about the fugitive ordinance revision. Well, in our thematic study, we mentioned that we undertook 2 surveys commissioned about commissioning the UCL to study the psychology of some of the police force. When you design the workshop, what I would like to ask is that have you take references from the thematic study and the research, which says that many police have full understanding of the task of police, and then have you take reference of the UCL the result and conclusion? Yeah, we have studied the summary and also the 52 recommendation from that report. And of course, we would like them to hold on to their belief, and then we need to remind them frequently. And then we cannot actually relax. And then we hope that they will also remind themselves about why, and also the belief of becoming a police officer. So that's why that we have that designed in our workshop. Well, that research, in fact, is only part of the study, and then the full report is already posted on our website. So if you have time, please actually have a look at it. And that study has gone through the series of study, and then also the different methodology to get that results. So I think that is worth referring to and take references. And I think one of the most important thing lies with the management. That they need to look into each one of those commanders to make sure that they know the psychological status of their officers who are on duty. And if someone is actually approaching their threshold, that you need to know how to manage that. And this is some basic ABC in management. And I hope that the police will take note of that. Well, Chair, I would like to add that some people ask whether psychological counseling and also training and how we are doing it in the police force. Like Ingrid said, that constable and also the superintendent, when they are in the actually police school, that they have that courses, and even on the job training, we have stress, the workshop, and other different kinds of subjects, and then these are all being included in their advanced training course. And we also have workshops for the superintendents, inspectors, and then other than the psychological or mental health of the police officers and the stress they are facing, we also provide information to our management so that they understand better each of our own officers the mental situation. In different districts, on different level of the management, and they also have very close contact with psychological health, and then we are facing different kinds of a range of different situations, and then so that's why that we would like to provide opportunities for them to have information and also the opportunities for different kinds of psychological support. So because of time, thank you very much, Ingrid, and thank you for your presentation. Now we go to the next item. Do we have a series of items, and then and we would like to invite the police colleagues to share. And the first one is the CAPO's monthly statistics. Please. In the first 8 months, we receive 763 reportable cases, and then compared to the 2019, there's the decrease of 200 more. And in the first 8 months, there is there's some complaints, and then compared to 2019, and then there's a decrease of more than 100 cases. In this first 8 months, the slight allegations are the majority, and then that include neglect of duty, misconduct, offensive languages, and then about 600, and then over 81%. And then the more serious charges like assault, threat, and fabrication of evidence, and then is about 18.2% of the total complaints. And then the neglect of duty is 351, and the misconduct 259, and the 14 cases of offensive languages, and then there's a decrease, and then there is a decrease of 29%. In the serious allegation, you can see the gray part. There are 93 is assault, and then threat is 1%, and then unnecessary use of authority is 31 cases, 4.1%, and there's one case of other offenses. Its theft is just like 0.1% of the total complaint. Where in serious complaints, and then there's a decrease of 11 cases, like a 7.3% decrease compared to the last period of time. And then the categories comparison, and compared to the 2019, neglect of duty, and there's a decrease, and then from the 518 to 351, and misconduct decreases from 341 to 259, a decrease of 24%. Offensive languages from the 20 to the 14, 6 cases less, 40% less, and serious allegation, assault, 104, the decreases to 93, a decrease of the 16%. And threat from 9 to 8 is a decrease of 11.1%. Neglect of abuses of authorities from the 28 to 31. This is an increase of 3 cases. Fabrication of evidence from 9 to 6 is a decrease of 33.3%. And then the complaints on the POE. This the part of those complaints, right? I will talk about the complaints on the fugitive ordinance revision until the 4th of September, and then we receive 1,029 complaints, and then among this 1,032.1 the reportable cases. And then the others are the notifiable complaints. That the complainants amounts to 8,000 and more. So among all these reportable complaints, the very slight allegations, and you can see that they are actually the red in the chart. Well, in the misconduct. There's the 212 is 34.8%, while the negligence of duty 118, and while misconduct is 43 cases, 7%, and for serious allegation, that there is the assault 106 amounts to the 17.4%. The abuse of authority, 88 cases, 14.85%. Threat, 9 cases, 1.5%. And fabrication is 2 cases. And
for these 609 reportable cases, the CAPO have got in touch with 500 people, or 170 chose full investigation, 100 chose withdrawal, 81 are sub judice, and 57 unpursuable, 52 haven't quite decided how to deal with their complaints, and 9 chose to deal with these through summary procedures. We have got in touch with 131 people, and they have not made any response so far. And there are 8 whom we will be in touch continuously. These are the statistics regarding the anti-extradition protest. Now, for the 52 recommendations. Regarding the 52 recommendations, like we said last time, the task force under the S4S has already divided the recommendations into 5 categories, and 5 working groups will be set up in the police, and they are to step up dissemination of messages and relationship with the media, review the use of force guidelines to improve the detention arrangement, and fourth, to enhance the deployment and strategy. Fifth, to enhance internal management and training. The 5 working groups have already started their work, and they have formulated their terms of reference, and the timetable has also been laid down. The working groups have already reported in the August meeting, and by the end of August, a progress report has been submitted to the Chief Executive. I'd like to report 3 recommendations that have been completed, and there's number 20, the effective use of water-filled barriers. Water-filled barriers are taller than the Mills barriers, and they can reinforce police cordon lines and minimize clashes between frontline police officers and violent protesters. We have procured 200 water-filled barriers and used them in 60 areas. The QGO, PHQ, to minimize the confrontation. Depending on the operational needs, the police will use these barriers in a flexible manner to enhance the police cordon. The second is number 48. Review the protocols for taking the lead to organize press conferences with other departments and institutions. The PPRB is liaising with the GIS to put in place the mechanism, and also to clarify rumors and fake news as soon as possible, and to disseminate a better understanding. And the next one is number 52. Consider identifying less remote sites as THAs in case such need arises in future. The location should also take into account the availability of hospitals and ambulance depots within reasonable distance. The police agree with all these factors and have already completed reviewing the location of the THAs, and there are 2 police stations have been identified as suitable location for POEs for the purposes of detention. Hong Ham Station and Sa Mau Ping Police Station are in this category because of the strategic location and the proximity to hospitals, and they have been designated as THAs. And on the 6th of September, they have been used to deal with the arrestees. Also, there is a mention in the report of the San Ok Leng Detention Center. The police have reviewed the environment of San Ok Leng Holding Center, bearing in mind the facilities and location of the San Ok Leng Holding Center. We consider that this is not a suitable location for the handling of arrestees in POEs. So we have already suspended the use of San Ok Leng Holding Center for this purpose. The police have already submitted a policy statement to the task force, and this has been confirmed by the task force. Finally, number 9, recommendation number 9, review the need for engaging media representatives to draw up a code of practice for meeting both police and media interests in their respective duties to the community and for ensuring safety of all concerned. The PPRB has invited the 4 media organizations for them to submit their views. The PPRB on the 3rd of September has also written to the 4 organizations to say that on the 30th and 31st of August operations, there were some self-proclaimed reporters who were involved, and they are in the mix of the reporters, and they're presenting difficulties of operation. They're also getting in the way of the news coverage. The police will continue to liaise with media organizations through mutual understanding and respect for us to do our respective work. On the one hand, we will ensure effective operation on the scene to maintain law and order. while at the same time, where circumstances permit, we will try to assist the reporters to do their jobs and to report the news. The police will be reporting the progress to the IPCC. These are the details regarding the 52 recommendations. Basically, you have completed the reports. Any questions from members? Yes, please, Tony. Chairman, thank you. Tony? Right, we go ahead first, please. Chairman, for the 52 recommendation, I'm grateful to the police for bringing us up to date. There are 5 task forces. You mentioned number 9, the relationship with the media, and you hope that you would come up with some sort of code of practice. I understand that the police have been liaising with the media organizations. Now, looking forward, how far along is the progress, and are you able to reach a point where you should be able to come up with consensus, and how soon will the consensus be achieved? Do you have any timetable there? Second, item 48, you mentioned the protocol for taking the lead to organize press conferences with other departments. Now, my question is, by the time it is completed, how will the protocol be working when it's up and running? 2 questions there, please. Please, and then your response first before the Vice Chair. Let me take the second question first, and the protocol for the press conferences. We have issued a set of guidelines. In the protocol, we will have regard to 5 factors. In an incident, if there is a need for senior officials or senior police officers to respond, this is one of the factors to be taken into account. Second, if this involves other departments or institutions, and this is a major issue, we will also activate this protocol. Third, if there are many questions from the media about an incident or major incident, however much we try to clarification, we cannot dispel any misgivings or any fake news, then there is a need for us to activate these cross-departmental press conferences to assuage public concerns and to dispel public alarm. Now, these are the factors to be taken into account. I noticed that you have the Facebook broadcast, and this is very timely. In the Facebook broadcast, if we are dealing with major incidents involving various departments, we can bring them in and get involved in the Facebook broadcast as well. Yes. Now, the progress about the protocol, right? The protocol with the media organizations. Let me respond. In May this year, the Commissioner has liaised with the News Executive Association, the Journalists Association, and the News Photographers Association, and so on. We've met them all, and for issues of news coverage on the scene, we did have really frank exchanges, and these exchanges represent the preliminary guide for us to put in place the protocol, and work is in hand at the moment. At the working level, in May this year, we have increased the liaison team to 300 people. Now, for POEs, we hope that there would be more liaison workers who will be able to assist the media news coverage work to ensure the safety. We are doing this in a practical level, and through the management and also on the working level, we are engaging in exchanges of comments, and this will be instrumental to the formulation of the protocol going forward. It's been a couple of months since the task force has been set up. We are following up on the issue proactively. If there are more specific details, perhaps at the next meeting or at future joint meetings, I will bring members up to date. Chairman, if I may, a moment ago when you talked about number 48, you mentioned the 5 conditions. They're very, very clear. One of them is that if the members of the public are concerned about certain issues, then that would become one of the factors to be taken into account in this mechanism. Now, let me ask a hypothetical question. There were 2 pieces of news about a 12-year-old girl and also the pregnant woman. The public, at the public level, they express a lot of concerns as to whether the police have used appropriate force. Now, will this question come under this particular protocol for more targeted response to be given for the media? Mr. Chan mentioned the 2 issues of concern, the pregnant woman and the 12-year-old girl. Now, those 2 issues took place on the 6th of September in Mongkok. In our Facebook, we have made the clarifications already. These 2 incidents, they happened in an operational situation. The PPRB has already made the clarifications there.
Hi.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Because of the movement, and then we also heard some statistics, and then we see that there is an increase in the complaint, particularly in the later half of 2019. And it seems that there is a decrease recently. But of course, the CAPO and IPCC will enthusiastically follow up on all these complaints and then hope to reach a kind of conclusion as soon as possible. Well, May this year, the Commissioner of Police said that even without complaints, if there is incidents, there's a serious misconduct by police officers, then the police will proactively undertake an investigation, and then also the follow up on the conduct of police officers. So I think that we should monitor the conduct of police, and then to meet the expectation of the public. And then my follow-up question is, is this task force already in operation, and will there be a regular report and updating on the category of incidents and the figures, etc., and the situation? And then this is a regular task force. This in IAAG task force belongs to the Complaint and Internal Investigation Division. And then it's established in 21st of May. It's a regular establishment. And then there are 15 members, and then led by the superintendent. And also that directly reported to the Deputy Commissioner of Police, who will also report to the Commissioner of Police. And then they have 3 main areas of responsibility. One is to investigate police who have breached very serious offenses, and then the other is about procedural issues, and the third is to enhance the monitor and supervision of police behavior and conduct. Since May, we have already worked on the number of cases on the misconduct of police officers. And other than that, we will also will supervise misconducts. That means that other than taking the cases of misconduct and other offenses, we will also supervise on the respective work. Well, you might also heard that we will soon implement some new management measures, and then one already started is within the financial year of the 2021 to 2022, that in the recruitment process and also promotion process, that all officers need to declare their financial situation. That means the financial declaration for promotion and also for recruitment. And then this applied to senior superintendent and inspectors. So from next year, we will also increase and then expand the scope. And then the other measures is about voluntary drug examination. And then, we hope that in the fourth quarter of this year, for those who work in sensitive division, that they will participate in this scheme. And if necessary, so this integrity and investigation division will announce our work and also the relevant statistics and information for new measures and policies. We will try to update you as appropriate. Well, I think that to increase transparency, appropriately, I think that it's very important to improve the image of the police. I understand that you've already done a lot, but for some and a minority of the police actually need to improve so that we can do better. And then, I think that to increase transparency will enable the public to understand that even without complaints, we will still follow up on our initiative. Well, I would like to follow up on the 2 points raised by the chair. One is that the police using Facebook. I think it's a good thing because that you're using a lot more of the social media. The second is, do you know about the hit rate? Or you know who? I visit our Facebook. Just now, you mentioned about those some incidents that attract public interest. Well, if that Facebook could not attract the public, then we need actually resort to other means to enhance the understanding of the public in the police operations. Well, I think that people actually use more Twitter than Facebook, right? Well, about the police Facebook, I will relate your comments to our PPRB colleagues. And, of course, Facebook is not the only means that we communicate to the public. Earlier this year, the PPRB have a direct broadcast, and last year, you see a lot of those video clips, and then the video clips mainly focus on our police and not the surrounding. So, this year, and we increase our staff and then to have more live broadcasts. so that the public will have another perspective to understand what's happening on the ground. Of course, the technology advances, and the PBRB will continue to find new technology to enhance the contact points of the police with the public. And we hope that the clicks will increase in the days to come. Well, as far as I know, there are the cases that already went to court, and then we knew that some of the magistrate and the judges are very harsh and on the police, criticizing them that they are mishandling evidence, and then also they use inappropriate forces on the accused, etc. So this the criticism of the judges attract a lot of the public and particularly the media. So I would like to ask the police if you can explain to the public first, on the negative comments by the court, is there any follow-up by the police? And the second is about for the police appearing in court and then giving a testimony and evidence, is there any preparation for them to do that? Thank you. Thank you for your question. I will take this opportunity to explain to members, and for some of the follow-up the police will undertake when the case was sentenced non-guilty, or for those cases, the responsible superintendent will look into each of these cases, and then the reasons for the finding not guilty, or whether that is the evidence from the police or from other witnesses, or there are some problem with the evidences, so that they will look into each of these cases. And then for the behavior of the police officers, we will review and disciplinary review, and then the result will be submitted to to DOJ. And if there are the misconduct and other offenses, we will have a hearing on those. And for other cases in court, like comments on the behavior during operation, etc. We are already handling all this, and then we'll look into these cases. If needed, we will open a case to follow up, or that we will refer to CAPO. So that for different situations, for unsatisfactory behavior, we would certainly have follow-ups. For other negative comments on our colleagues, like when the police officers was giving evidence, and then they seems not prepared, and then in fact that on the basic training of the CP, and also for the inspectors, we will have mock exercises telling them what they should take note in giving evidence and testimony, and then also that when they are on different tasks and duties, like for the people who are responsible for criminal investigation, and then many of these officers will have more opportunity of giving evidence in courts. And then, so that the trainings for these officers will have mock court exercises, so that they will be more prepared to appear in court. And other than that, regularly we will have sharing seminars, etc., to enhance the behavior in court. Just like recently on the 3rd of September in the cadet school, we have the sharing the information, and then inviting different legal professionals to share the process or the procedures in court, so that our colleagues will have a better understanding of what they should do and then they will be asked to do in court. If there's no further question, then we have ended all the agendas. Any other business? Any other business, members? If not, then meeting will end here. And thank you all. I would like to thank the chair again, and also all the questions and also comments and suggestions to us. I understand that while you all take a lot of importance on the integrity and also behavior of the police officers, including our behavior in court. And I would like to repeat that we will follow every case. And as I just mentioned before, that if there is any misconduct, the management will actively intervene. Thank you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. You must have tuned in to our meeting with the police. And there are two areas of work. The first one is to follow up on the recommendations in the implementation regarding the thematic report. We've heard the police report today. Myself, the Secretary General, and members attach a great deal of importance to the progress of implementation regarding the 52 recommendations. 3 have been completed so far, and there are important ones as well, like the police training and also the guidelines for the use of force. The police said that they would need a bit of time to conduct study and make preparation. As you saw earlier on, the police have commissioned the psychologists to conduct resilience workshops and also to provide counseling and to make sure that better job can be done. All these are for the long term and would take time. We will follow up on this. Also of concern to the community are issues raised by members. I don't have to repeat them here. In the anti-extradition bill protests, we have received a lot of complaints, and each and every case is considered to be important cases. And we have our Vice Chairman following up on this. Perhaps Vice Chair Mr. J and the SG can follow up on this. Let me say this. There are complaints arising from the anti-extradition bill protests, and from June last year to the 4th of September, the complaints arising from the protests, the number is 1,945, involving 9,700 complainants. 1/3 of the cases, or 609, are reportable cases. From 611 complainants, there are 1,007 allegations, 1,200 involving 8,000 complainants. They are notifiable complaints. In terms of nature, 1/3 of them, or 205, belong to serious allegations like assault, fabrication of evidence, and unnecessary use of authority. 404 are of a minor nature, like misconduct, improper manner, and neglect of duty, and so on. As of September 4th, of the 609 reportable cases, the IPCC has received 308 investigation reports. So they have completed 308 reports filed for submission to the IPCC.
It covers June last year to May this year. So other than the 308 cases, and 224 remaining are still under investigation by CAPO, and 77 cases because it involved other offenses, so the complaint and also the offense are related, and then we had to stop the investigation because of that. The 308 investigative report that we received, 97 have undergone a full investigation, 40%. 160 cases withdrawn the complaint, and 104 cases has been classified as unpursuable, and then some that resorted to the summary action, curtailed the investigations. And until the 4th of September, we have approved 98 cases, including the 59 withdrawn cases, 26 non-pursuable cases, 7 through the simplified procedures to resolve, and 6 cases have substantiated results. That means that 2 has been proven cases, and then 1 has not been reported but proven, and then 3 was found no fault. And then in these 308 cases until today, we have the 208 queries involving 441 issues, like clarifying the information, background, identification of complainant, and further and more evidence, and also the use of police force, etc. And until since June last year to today, there are the 209 reportable cases. And then the observation we have made is that, that there are also many cases involving media. And then among the 609 cases, 137 are made by the media personnel. And then there are 199 allegations like misconduct, unnecessary use of authority, offensive languages, and 6 cases assault complaints. And 137 that involve media, and we have already approved the 16 cases. 15 of them, the complainant actively withdrawn the complaint, and 1 is non-pursuable. They covered misconduct, like stopping the media from performing the duty, and use of offensive languages, and then use of shields, and then barging forward, etc. And there are the minor complaints like neglect of duty, meaning that they have not facilitated the media from doing their duties. For all these reportable cases, referred to the task force led by Mr. J. And then for further analysis, I will leave it to Mr. J. And then, other than being impartial and fair in looking into these complaints, we will follow through from once this complaint is being made to how this is being processed. We will send observers to undertake our duty. Until today, we have made 870 observations. Wow, that means 100% of all the complaints that activities, including the meeting of a CAPO with the complainees, etc. So this ends my report. Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. Since May, we released the thematic report. We have actively follow up on the recommendations we've made in the report, and to see how the recommendations were being well undertook. And then other than that, and then we also look into the complaints regarding POEs. And the Secretary already will give you the statistics regarding different categories of complaints. What I would like to report is the IPCC have already approved the 98 cases investigation of these complaint cases in September. And 90% of these cases, of this are non-pursuable and withdrawn. Then that means 95 cases fall into those two categories. We hope that although some of them are very minor allegations like misconduct and use of offensive languages and negligence of duty, etc., we still look into all these cases, like that we've mentioned, non-pursuable or withdrawn. We meticulously and prudently look into all these cases. Well, for those non-pursuable, they usually cannot be pursued because of that the complainees are not cooperative enough. So these are not very satisfactory. We hope that the complainees, in making the cases, they should provide comprehensive and then true informations to IPCC and also CAPO. And because if the information comes too late, that the IPCC will have problems in following up. For instance, like video clips, and that these video clips might be erased because of time. And then for the non-pursuable cases, and and then also withdrawn cases. And we need actually to get the record of the dialogue, between CAPO and also the complainees, or that the written proofs or written documents for them to make the withdrawal. For non-pursuable cases, we will follow up on the information we have to follow up. We do not easily give up on the non-pursuable cases. We would make sure that a couple will at least make 3 calls to the complainees, and also that they need to follow with 2 written letters, and then to try other means to communicate with the complainees, including their legal representatives. So in all these circumstances, we will try all our means to contact the complainees to provide further the information to the couple. Just now we mentioned that if the complainee do not cooperate, but under those circumstances, we still make use of the information we have to see whether that we can make a case. That means that we will not easily give up, and then even the complainee does not cooperate with us, or that they withdraw the case, we will still look into the information to substantiate the case. So we really call upon those complainees to provide true and also comprehensive information to us as early as possible, so that those complaints can effectively be followed up and then be concluded. Thank you. Anything you want to add? Yes, thanks, Chair. Now here I would like to follow up on the media relationship. As you all know that IPCC have issued a thematic study, and in this report we have made 52 recommendations. Among these 52 recommendations, a lot are on the police relationship with the media in POEs, how they work together, and etc. And so we made some recommendations regarding this. And the police have already responded to that in May and also in August this year. A different working group or task force under the Secretary of Security have prioritized 5 recommendations under these 52 recommendations. And then within these 5 areas that include how to enhance information to the public and also media relationship. And these 2 are under the 5 priority areas. IPCC hope that the police can reach a kind of consensus with the media, in particular during the POEs, so that they can facilitate the media in providing the information on site. And then, of course, that we also understand that the police need to enforce the law and order, and then that means that we need to keep a good balance between the two. And that's why we hope that the police and the media could reach a kind of code of conduct during POEs, so that both will find it appropriate during this POEs. And then we also understand that the Journalist Association have sent us a letter in how to coordinate with the police. We understand that the Security Bureau have already started the work in this regard, and they have also met with 4 professional groups, media groups, and work on the working level kind of cooperation. So that we will continue our observation to see the progress. And we also like to appeal and call on the media to have better communication with the police, so that they can reach a consensus on the code or guideline for the POEs. And I think this is the best scenario. And we hope that the police will continue their work, and so that they can reach a satisfactory progress. And at the same time, as the Vice Chair mentioned about the complaints, we can see that many of the complaints involving media, that there is no further follow-up by the journalists. CAPO have invited some of them to provide further information, but until today that the response is not enthusiastic enough. So we hope that concerned media or journalists could provide further information relating to other complaints so that a CAPO can carry on with their work. And IPCC, of course, could monitor the work in this respect. Lastly, regarding the 52 recommendations, IPCC all along if we see that there's a space of improvement from CAPO or the police, we will submit or deliver our recommendations to the chief executive or the police commissioner.
So for the past 10 years, since its inception, the IPCC has made 150 recommendations for improvement. So we will do more of the same going forward. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you. Questions? Before you put questions, please identify the organization you work for. Yes, please. Oriental Daily. The Security Bureau has submitted a working report to the Chief Executive regarding the 52 recommendations, and they said that there will be a report. How is the report going to be done? The report today, is it a part of the reporting process? So let's say they have a recommendation completed each month. Do we take 4 years for all the recommendations to be completed? There are many complaints that have been withdrawn. And for the 79 cases that are fully investigated, are there any fully investigated cases that have been substantiated? What sort of cases are they? Can you tell us the nature of these cases that have been substantiated? 2 questions there. First, for the 52 recommendations, the 3 that we mentioned are faster than others. It's not the case that they will do a couple of them in 3 months. It's not the case. That's not how they proceed. We do have a tacit understanding with the Bureau and the force about the follow-up. They have 5 subgroups that are looking into the 52 recommendations, and each subgroup has its own timetable for implementation. And as a next step, they will be bringing us up to date on the timetable for implementation. They have to, within a year, they will be able to complete the majority of the recommendations. They told us today that for some of them, they do need time to look into the details, and they need to get hold of the information from other parts of the world. In France, in the US, they have these large-scale POEs also, and they are also making reference to other jurisdictions and make comparison, and they will submit a report later on. So we are following up on these proactively. The second question is deferred to the SG. For the nature of the cases, just to let you know about some of them, 70% of the cases received belong to the withdrawn category or not pursuable category. For the withdrawn cases, we do have an established procedure is for the complainant to withdraw themselves. We've seen these cases, and they are of a minor nature. The complainant's intention, the complainant understood the situation, and they don't want to pursue, and they just want to reflect the situation to the force for improvement to be made. For others that are withdrawn, they said that they would consider alternative avenues, like they would go down the judicial path. Not pursuable. Most of them, the complainant never shows up at the CAPO, and there is no way the CAPO can get in touch with them. In many cases, when they lodge the complaints, they involve arrests and other cases. After the arrest, maybe they don't need to be on bail, and they don't have any more liability in connection with the case, and they don't get in touch with CAPO anymore. That's the vast majority of these cases. For minor complaints, say for instance, some of them have to do with certain dialogues, like the policeman on the scene may be saying something using terms that are unpopular, like cockroach, and so on. And for reporters, they may say that these are rioters, go ahead and film them. And people who heard these kind of comments find these really unpalatable. There are other complaints in which the complainants are not protesters. They are members of the public. Because of road closure, they find it difficult to get home, and they are on the receiving end of the CS gas, and they understood the situation subsequently, and they withdrew the complaints. And there are other workers who get caught up in the road closure because of the POEs and find it difficult to get to work, and nor can they get home, and therefore they lodge a complaint. By the time they lodge a complaint, they were terribly unhappy with the situation, but by the time they calm down and understood the situation, they withdraw the complaints. The reporter asked about the details of these cases. We have endorsed 98 cases, and 59 withdrawn, non-pursuable 26. Those are resolved by informal resolution 7. There are 6 that have a concrete result. Of the 6, 2 involved frontline officer using offensive language. About 3 months ago, I did report this to the media. Now, for these 2 cases, we do have the video record to substantiate that. There is another case which was substantiated without reporting, that has to do with the neglect of duty. Now, that was originally an unpursuable case. The complainant was involved in a criminal case and was arrested. The police escorted him to the police van. He was hooded, and he complained that without his agreement, without his consent, he was hooded. Now, subsequently, he was released unconditionally, without bail, and he never appeared again. He never responded to this case. But we went back to the record. The police officer said that he did ask and sought his consent to be hooded. Under the police regulation, if the police decide to hood someone, his consent has to be sought. His consent has to be obtained, and this has to be entered into the logbook. That police officer said that he did get his consent, although there was no record. So it is a case of neglect of duty. It was originally an unpursuable case. So That's a case of substantiated other than reported. There are 3 cases of no fault. 2 involved misconduct. There was a case that there was a withdrawal case. The complainant lodged a complaint saying that he saw the use of force by the police on TV, and therefore he lodged a complaint. And when CAPO got in touch with him, he expressed his feelings towards the incident to CAPO. CAPO told him that we may be adopting different stances. It's best for us not to discuss the matter. We listened back to the tape. The complainant, having heard that, said that we are on the opposite end of the political spectrum. But having listened to the tape, it was said that we do have different stances. It's best for us not to discuss this here. I think this is a reasonable response. If a complainant is lodging a complaint, and if he is on about his political stance, it would not be appropriate for the police, for the CAPO, to get embroiled in this kind of discussion. So having listened to the audio recording, we find that the treatment was appropriate. The complainant withdrew the complaint, but there was no fault at all on the part of the police. There was another case of no fault. Originally, it was unpursuable. The complainant was involved in an anti-extradition POE, and he was arrested. He was taken home to conduct a search, and he signed on the logbook to give the consent for the police to home search. After he lodged the complaint, he never gave any more attention to the complaint, and he never turned up to give any additional evidence or statement. But we looked at the logbook, and there was this person's signature on it, so the consent was given. He may choose not to turn up. Eventually, we decided that it was a no-fault case because there was a proper record of the whole thing. Now, all these cases show that for some cases, some of them are non-pursuable or withdrawal cases, but we would not let go of these cases. We would look at these cases individually in order to give justice to the complainant and other people. Any further questions? Speaker not coming through. Hong Kong 01. Can you speak up a little bit? I can't quite hear you. Can you hear me? Hong Kong 01. If I may ask a question here, other than the non-pursuable and withdrawal cases, you mentioned 2 substantiated cases. What are they? What are the nature of these 2 cases? And there was a police officer who wrestled a pregnant woman and a 12-year-old girl to the ground. Have you received any complaints there? And also Mr. Ng Man Yun's case. Why is it that it is unsubstantiated? Can you explain why, please? That's Ava Ng. Right, first of all, the 12-year-old girl and also the pregnant woman who got wrestled to the ground. We understand that that pregnant woman is a notifiable complaint, and a third party, a witness, lodged the complaint, not the woman herself. So we would look at more the tapes. It is a notifiable case. The police would also follow up, having regard to the tape recording. We did ask this question this afternoon. As you could see, the police will look into the incident. Now that minor, they have given us, a response. So far, they have not received any complaints.
You can see that in all these incidents, both sides are emotional. So on the police side, they need actually to understand themselves better, and also the other people. And what the psychologists have suggested that we should do, and I think that this is a professional issue as well as a management issue. So that for the police, well, in handling all this situation, on one side they need to control their emotion, and then well, for law enforcers, they need actually to respect law. So they need to respect the rights of the public. But on the other hand, the public should also observe the law. And then if we can both keep calm, we can respect each other and also the law, then the situation will be better. Well, in our 52 recommendations, we also mentioned that the police as law enforcer should also respect the public. And then in the future, even when they are using force, and then there should be more training. Just like Mr. Lam says, that there are two committees who's taking care of this, and then we will also actively follow up these issues. Well, the two substantiated cases are related to the misuse of offensive languages. The first case took place in Zhangbei, and then at that time that the police is in operation and is on a flight over, and then the complaint was on his way home. The police asked him to get home quickly, and then the police use foul languages. We can see that in the video. So this is why it is substantiated. The other is also about the offensive language. At that time, there's the district councillor and his assistant were recording an operation of the police officer, and then the frontline police officer approached them and then used offensive language, and it's also been recorded by video. So these two are categorized as offensive language cases. Do you have the date, and then do you have the name of the district councillor? Well, as I just mentioned, the two cases took place in September, the other in October, and then the one in Taipo is involved the Taipo district councillor. I would not name him here. I come from Mingpao. I would like to ask, other than the agenda in the meeting, and people are also very concerned about the 21st July incidents last year, and the police arrested Lam Trek Ting, the legislative councillor, and then charged him for the rioting. And so, what is your opinion about this? And how do you find the interpretation of the police on the 7/21 incidents? And then the interpretation of the police is quite different from your thematic study. And then do you agree with the police interpretation? And then what is your response to that? well, I could respond to you directly. First of all, Mr. Lam was arrested. So one day, this case will be brought to court. We need to believe our judiciary system. It is fair. Why it is fair is because, well, even in the preliminary trial, that if you find that it is unsatisfactory, you can still appeal to a higher court. So we need to wait until justice is being done in the court. And I don't think that I should comment here. Well, what do you find? And how do you find the interpretation of the police saying that there are two clans and then they are equal in power? And then I hope that, the two sides could present a case in court. We need to have trust and then the faith in our court. It doesn't matter if I believe it or not. I believe what the police said or not.
How does the IPCC view the progress with the police? The police progress with following up with the 52 suggestions. Are you guys satisfied with the speed, given that they've only taken up about completed three suggestions so far, and it has been months? Second question, kind of a follow-up on the July 21st incident, because the police seem to be changing the narrative surrounding that incident, and even though you guys can't really comment too much because the court proceedings is ongoing, with this inconsistency with the police version of the events and the IPCC version of the event, what are you guys going to do about that? And how are you guys going to, kind of like match the two differences? Third question regarding many judges, after following some rulings and sentencing, they have come out and say that the police witness testifying that the testimony it's not true, it's not real, and the police kind of explained today. But do you wish the force would do more action in that regards to, and follow up on the issue, because the case now is that even if they have give false testimony, there seems to be no consequences.
Well, first, let me answer the third question first. In terms of what judges say in the course of their judgments, I think that has to be dealt with within the legal system, which is if anybody feels that the judge has been unfair in any way, that could be a ground of appeal. So I think whoever is dissatisfied with that should consider an appeal. I think the Chief Justice has already said that judges in judging cases, they should stick to the facts. So I'm sure if this judge feels that indeed were the facts, then of course he's entitled to say that. And if people feel that he's wrong, then they are entitled to appeal. That is our legal system, and we should trust our legal system. Now, in terms of what the police will do in relation to these comments by judges, this afternoon we did ask that question, and you've heard the police answer on that. And if they feel that somehow that the case has not been fairly dealt with, first of all, the police in prosecuting a case, they are witnesses, but it is the Department of Justice which is prosecuting the case. The Department of Justice represents the people. In fact, if the people, therefore representing the people, the Department of Justice feel that that case has been unjustly dealt with, then they should consider appealing. But of course, I don't know the exact facts of each case, so the Department of Justice will, I am sure, look at each case. Now, as I understand it, the procedure after each case in a criminal court, if the prosecution fails to prove a case, the prosecutor actually has to write a report to consider whether in fact there should be grounds for appeal. Therefore, really it's up to them. As to the first question, so we must trust our legal system in this. I mean, the police have also said in this case that in relation to the cases that have gone to court, I think now over 2,000 cases have gone to court now. They have informed us that something like 84% of the cases have resulted in a result which meant that the accused had to bear some legal responsibility, whether it's a case of fine, a case of imprisonment, a case of probation, a case of binding over, and so on. So therefore, it's not a small percentage, it's 84%. So the police, of course, is working very, very hard to bring the other cases. And they have informed us, of course, that each case has to be based on good evidence before a prosecution can be brought. And therefore, they need to produce a file for each case. They need to get legal advice. And then, of course, they need to bring the case to court. So these are the procedures which our legal system require to ensure that each citizen, in fact, has his right under the law to be prosecuted according to the evidence, and only to be found guilty if the case is proven beyond reasonable doubt. On the first question, these are still relatively early days of our 52 recommendations. Now, I have been in touch with both the Chief Executive as well as the Secretary for Security, as well as the Commissioner, and they all assure me that they are treating this with the fullest urgency. And what we're doing right now, as I've told your colleagues today, is that we are working towards a timetable as to how these 52 recommendations, and in fact, after we've made these 52 recommendations, today we've come up with a few more. So they will be working on those new ones as well. Those new ones represent, in fact, what your colleagues have asked me about: people, police officers attending a scene and somehow attending that scene, their psychology is somehow affected, in fact, by all the pressure that they face, and which is why we think that a question of making sure that the police understand the pressure that they're under, how they face those pressures, and how they understand that the people in the street are people, and ensure that their rights are respected. So these are the subjects that we, as an IPCC, are much interested in discussing with the police. But the Commissioner assures me that he sees our recommendations as important, and he would make sure that he sees that we see implementation as soon as possible. But there are some aspects of that which require time. I mean, for example, training, use of force. Now, we see right now that there are a lot of public order events around the world, particularly in the United States, in France, and so on. And what the police tell us is that they would like to collect information as to how people deal with these events, whether there's anything new that they could learn from, so that they could actually then write a good report and make good recommendations in terms of implementing what we have suggested.
The last questions. The speaker doesn't go through. Okay, just now a colleague asked about the 21st July incidents. We are not asking your opinion while going through the thematic study, and then also compare to the version presented by the police recently. And well, it seems that there are quite significant differences. Well, IPCC, do you think that that you have done good enough in your thematic study, and that's why that is such a difference? And then do you think that we need to follow up? And then you said that we need to trust the judiciary system. But justice that cannot be made if the justice is denied it. 咁咧就係for the people who are hurt and then they are being arrested and charged, and then how far is it from justice? And you also mentioned a case that the people are just putting some water barricades outside the police force, and then first of all about the water barricades. The actions are just starting, and then I think the next step is depends on the expectation of the public. You can see that the police continuously look into the expectations from the public and also the response, and then to decide the next step.
So the question is, why do we need these water-filled barriers? The idea is to minimize the direct confrontation between the police and the public. It's not simply a question of putting the water-filled barrier. The idea is to minimize conflicts. Now you mentioned how far away is it from justice? It is just like how long is a piece of rope. Everybody would have different ideas. It's a too broad a question for me to comment on. But what about the 721 case? Well, it's very simple. This issue will be resolved in court. If you don't have any faith in court, you can't have any faith in anything. What I'm saying, you may not agree. So at this point in time, at this stage, I think we have to resort to the fairer system for a resolution. In the thematic report, there is a discrepancy with the police narrative. Do you think that IPCC ought to make a response? At this point in time, it's no use for you to do anything at all. We have to wait for the court to come to a decision. You talk about the sequence of time. Our sequence is correct, but I don't think it's right for me to talk about anything here. By the time it gets to the court, all the details will be examined. So at this stage, I'm not going to offer any comments. I hope that you have faith in the legal system here. Now, what is the point of the thematic study report? Do you think that this has not been as good as it should be? There are two things here. The first one is how we can make sure that we will be able to make recommendations for improvement to the chief executive and the force. Second, if there are complaint cases, how do we scrutinize these cases? So basically, we have achieved these purposes. Even in the 721 incident, we have made a lot of recommendations there, and we have achieved the purpose that we set out to achieve. As regards complaint cases, the one in Yunlong, the vast majority have to do with the 999 system. And we have already made a recommendation there. Last one, please. In the report, I will remember on the night you published the report, Carrie Lam said that this report represents the truth of Hong Kong. And a couple of months later, we have a new truth. And how do you see this particular report? Do you think that the police do not respect the report about the sequence of events, and what? I urge you to put this question to the chief executive. These are not my words. If you look at the report, when it comes to individual incidents, we do adduce the records and also the facts. So we will not say anything lightly. in this report, we have adduced all the relevant facts. So the way you look at the report, you have to look at all the facts that we adduce. SG. If I may answer this directly, the thematic study report adopts a macro view. We have all the information received which are set out in the report. You mentioned two things. The first one is the 80 minutes, 39 minutes, the time sequence, and also the narrative about equally matched forces. We have set out the sequence of events. When did the report room receive the report? When did they deploy the uniformed officers? When they send the rapid response team and so on? So what time do you adopt for the calculation? When Senior Superintendent Chan made the remarks, the Commissioner made a clarification. They should start counting from the time the report is received, not from the time the rapid response team is sent. So in our report, we stated all the facts about the timing. There is different way of calculation. As to whether they are equally matched, the Commissioner has already made a clarification. There is a personal perspective, personal perception. We have stated how many people there. We never said they are equally matched in forces. So does it mean that this rendered the thematic study report untrustworthy? I think you ought to get the facts right, get the facts straight. All the facts are laid out there. As the chairman said, it's up to you to look at it. Everybody would have their own ideas. I think the Commissioner mentioned the timing and so on. I think he has already stated the facts there as to how or when it should be calculated. Well, when it comes to the parties to the case, we should not talk about this, because if we say, we may be saying something that would prejudice the court proceedings. Thank you all very much for coming. Thank you.